I think there's a cricket living in one of those helmets, by the way.
Is there?
I could hear it chirping, yeah. So just before you stick it on your head.
Barry Sheen's helmet there.
Very nice.
In case you hadn't realised, we are not legal experts, which is why we've teamed up with White Dalton Motorcycle Solicitors to bring you free legal advice.
Hello and welcome back to Legal Corner with as ever, Gav from White Dalton. Gav, how you doing?
Good to see you again. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, and you? How's it? How is it?
Yeah, loving the weather at the moment.
Yes.
We have got another heat wave on the way.
Yes, which kind of leads us to today's topic, I guess.
Yes, yeah. And let's vote. Who here rides their motorcycle without full protective kit? Yeah.
I mean, the very least, I put a jacket on of some sort. I put gloves on, and I know a lot of people don't wear gloves because I see it all the time, and obviously a helmet. That's my kind of bare minimum.
Yeah, I saw someone the other day going through my village, brand new Fireblade, trainers, shorts, t-shirt, lid. Okay. Now, this is going to...
No judging here.
No, there's no judging here, but I suspect it's going to split the comments 50-50 as to
yes,
all the kit all the time, or actually be quite relaxed about it.
I mean, when me and Chris were in Italy, when it was super hot, we rode in trainers, shorts and t-shirt, and it wasn't really ideal, but it was so hot. That was the best we could do. So
I wonder is it more of a British thing? Where people get really uptight?
No.
Is it all over?
Oh, so you mean people getting uptight about people not wearing
having
kit?
the kit or not having the kit? Yeah.
Maybe it is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you or talk to you about the legal ramifications, okay? Because this has been tested in court a number of times. And again, no judgment. I don't think I'm going to sit here and go, you need to ride like this or you need to ride like that. It's one's own assessment of risk, but the law has something to say on it. So I will dive straight in, if that's okay.
Sure, dive in all you want, Gav. Dive straight into me.
We've got, in this country, in England and Wales, it's a legal requirement to wear a helmet, okay? Except if you're a follower of the Sikh religion.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Sikh, I should wear a turban if I was a devout Sikh, and that includes an exception. So the Road Traffic Act does actually have a legal exemption, and I've seen it around my way actually, people riding around with a turban on. I mean, they look really cool. When the sun's out and they're on a big cruiser, it looks really cool. So yeah, legal position is you must wear a helmet. If you don't, you could be stopped, you could be fined for an offence. So if you are riding with a helmet, you comply with the law. Other kit, actually, it's advisory.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about a jacket you wear, you talk about gloves, you talk about boots. The Highway Code doesn't, or the Road Traffic Act doesn't say they are required, they're a legal requirement, but it does give a recommendation, which is you should wear sturdy boots, you should wear gloves, you should wear a jacket, etc. And the idea behind it, obvious, is to avoid serious injury in the event of an accident.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could argue that if you're going to have a big injury, a serious crash, then a jacket and jeans and some sturdy boots is not going to help the situation.
Yeah, and you know what? You've hit the nail on the head, because that is where the law sort of tries to analyse what could have happened and is there an allegation of not wearing enough kit. So going way back to the 70s, famous case, which is still good law now, case of Froome and Butcher. Now, it wasn't involving a biker, it was a seatbelt case.
Right.
So at the time of this accident, the chap wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And if I go back to the time of this accident, it wasn't a requirement. It wasn't, it wasn't a legal requirement. It was advised that you do wear a seatbelt because it could avoid injury. And
clunk, clunk, click, don't be a dick.
There you go, yeah. And I think public opinion sort of moved that way. There was a real battle of opinion then, because you had, on one side, people saying you should wear seatbelts, a bit like you should wear helmets, you should do these things to take care of you. And the other side going, well, people are free to travel as they wish. If you don't want to wear a seatbelt, you don't have to. Now you do, because it's a legal requirement. It's found its way into law, which is why now we have these laws that say you must wear a seatbelt. If you don't, you could be fined. There are exemptions, of course, okay? But if I start on the point of Froome and Butcher, which is still good law, and it basically said what you've suggested, which is if there's an allegation that you haven't worn kit, or in this case a seatbelt, wouldn't have resulted in any difference to the injuries, there is a 0% reduction on your damages. Okay? The point you make, you go, yeah, I was wearing a jacket, I was wearing boots and a helmet. However, the accident was so severe that I've got serious injuries. It made no difference whether I had them on or had them off, because the injuries are catastrophic. So the law does follow that. If there's no difference to the injuries, 0% reduction. However, it then goes a bit further, and Fruman Butcher said that if wearing a seatbelt had made a difference to the injuries sustained to the car driver, then there ought to be a 15% reduction, okay, to your damages. So if you were going to be awarded £10,000, you are not going to get your full £10,000. You're going to get a 15% reduction on that to take.
And this all can still relate to motorcycles.
Yeah, it can, absolutely can. Yeah, and in fact, I'll bring it up to date and talk about some recent cases involving bikers. Interestingly, there's not a huge amount of case law on the point about boots, jackets, gloves, helmets, and Fruman Butcher also said that if you could have avoided the injuries altogether or made a qualitative reduction to them, then there should be a 25% reduction. Okay. Interestingly, it doesn't go so far as to say if you had been wearing your seatbelt, you wouldn't have been injured, you'll get nothing. It will reduce it by 25%. Okay. So that's what the law says.
Right.
And as I bring it up to date, an interesting case involving a chap in a taxi. So he was a passenger in a taxi. Taxi driver had an accident. This is the case of Pearson and Anwar. And sadly, the chap in the back of the taxi suffered serious spinal injuries because of the accident. Okay, so
because he was not wearing a seatbelt.
Not wearing a seatbelt. Yeah. Right. So he's been ragdolled around in the back of the taxi after an accident, and in that case, they were arguing that there should be a 25% reduction on his damages because if he had clicked in his seatbelt, he'd had a whiplash injury. A lot less serious than suffering a spinal injury and being tetraplegic. Now, so cases like that, they are worth tens of millions of pounds. So if you think you might have a case worth £20 million because it's a quadriplegia case for a young man, 25% reduction could be £5 million. It's a big reduction to the overall value, but it doesn't defeat the case as a whole. So it won't be a zero award. It will be.
So this 25%, 15%, how does that, talk to me, how does that work in the motorcycle world? Then obviously, if someone gets knocked off their bike and they're not wearing the full kit, they could be liable for a reduction because they're not wearing the full kit. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So actually, right, let's talk about the law itself. So the law that refers to what you just said is the law form Contributory Negligence Act 1945. Okay.
1945.
Yeah, still good law. Yeah, still good law. And if I just read this out, I'll explain it in plain English. So where any person suffers damage as the result partly of his own fault and partly of the fault of any other person or persons, a claim in respect of that damage shall not be defeated by reason of the fault of the person suffering the damage. So they can't just wipe out the claim fully, but the damage recoverable in respect shall be reduced to such extent as the court thinks just and equitable. Okay, right. So this is where you'll have lawyers battling each other over arguments of your client wasn't wearing motorcycle boots. If he was wearing motorcycle boots, his ankle wouldn't have been as badly broken as it was.
Right.
Okay. So the law says they can't defeat the claim as a whole, but Fruman Butcher is still good law. The court will look at all of the facts of the case and determine should it be reduced or shouldn't it be reduced. So this is why you'll have, a potential argument. It doesn't sit well with me because a potential argument could be, well, if you're wearing City race boots, you'd have been less broken. Instead, you're wearing Adidas trainers. And you go, well, okay, on the face of it, I can see the argument, but really it's for the medical experts or other experts in the area to comment on that. you could have a medical expert going, it doesn't matter what he was wearing. You know, a city boot is made of leather, reinforced plastic, carbon fibre on some of them.
Yeah.
Well, the car's hit his ankle at 40 miles per hour, you know.
Or 80 mile an hour.
Yeah, it was going to be decimated anyway. So the court could look at that. If they get one party raising that as an issue to go, you'd have been less injured, the court will go, okay, if that's your argument, let's see what it's based on, and I'm the judge, I'm the one that's going to make a decision having heard the evidence.
But then there's a kind of a real grey area at the moment because there's so many boots, shorty style trainer boots that are CE level 2, sometimes more approved.
Yeah.
And the court will go, oh, hang on, well, look at the level of protection. They're just as good as his race boots.
Yeah, and right, okay, and that's a really good point, yeah. I don't think, so if you follow the guidance in the highway code is to wear sturdy boots, okay? So
again, that's quite old school, isn't it? Sturdy boots.
A sturdy boot.
Like,
I mean, arguably
a big leather steel toe cap boot.
could be. Yeah, no, could be.
Doc Martens.
Yeah, no, and you go
12 hole.
Yeah, does that fit the definition of a sturdy boot? It does.
Yeah.
Workman's boots, you know, police issued boots. Do that? Are they sturdy boots? Yes. So I think if you meet the definition, then you've got a tick in the box. I think it's very difficult, if not impossible, for the defendants to say, we're going to come after you because they weren't CE AAA rated.
Yeah, okay.
And you go, but they don't have to be, you know, that level of rated.
Yeah.
They have to be sturdy boots, and they were, full stop. Where the argument opens up, and I had a case on this a few years back, a pillion, a lady on the back, wearing trainers, nice sunny day, wearing trainers, had an accident, broke her ankle. And initially there were murmurings made that we're going to look at you for contributory negligence. They never followed it through, okay? If they wanted to follow it through, they really had to get evidence as to what was the shoe that she was wearing. I mean, they couldn't find that out because they were covered in blood and they were discarded at the roadside. So they'd have to have the claimant to go, this is what I was wearing. They'd have to go to their experts to say, if you were wearing these and had a collision, would it make a substantial difference as opposed to if you were wearing sturdy boots? And if the expert came back and said, well, no, because you've hit them at 20 miles per hour, there's always going to be serious trauma, then they've wasted a load of time and money and effort on pursuing a line that doesn't really get anywhere. In that particular case, we settled it on 100% value. There was no reduction, despite them making murmurings of, we're going to reduce it, okay? Helmets, it can apply to helmets as well, because not strapping up the
clip,
and a case in question, quite an old case, but it's a case of Capps and Miller. So in that case, there was an argument over a moped rider. The helmet came off in the collision, and the moped rider didn't clip up the strap properly.
Right.
So at the point of impact, the helmet's ejected, which happens more often than you realise.
Yes, yeah.
Sadly suffered a serious brain injury, and the argument was, well, if you had done it up as is safe, as is sensible, and as you ought to be wearing that sort of kit, then you wouldn't have suffered an injury as serious as you did. Now, in that case, they actually lost at first instance, but then appealed the judge, and on appeal got a 10% reduction. So if you're looking at a brain injury case worth £1 million, 10%, £100,000, that's the saving the insurer is making by raising these arguments. So they're only paying you 900 grand, not the full million, because that 10%, has saved them some money. I mean, they are spending some money, don't forget, in trying to get that reduction, because you're talking about experts, you're talking about barristers, at trial, solicitors to prepare the case and go and have the argument.
A massive amount of legal fees.
A massive amount of legal fees, yeah, and this is where there's definitely an economic side to this, which is why you might see it being deployed on the really serious cases, not so much on a 10, 20, 30 grand broken ankle case,
right.
because there's not the money in it, and the insurer might go, well, we could raise it as issue, we're not going to, because it's going to cost us more money trying to raise it to get a reduction, which is not worthwhile. But, I guess the takeaway from this is, the law does say that you need to be taking care of yourself, okay? And if you follow the highway code, you can't go far wrong. If you are riding around, without any kit, and, I'm not going to judge anyone, I've done it myself, I put my helmet on, I ride down to the shops. You need to take into account that if it goes wrong, there might be these arguments after the event.
Well, thanks, Gav.
No problem.
And thanks to Pitbox for having us. If you'd like to have your bike in storage with all these fine ladies and gentlemen, then we'll put a link in the description and tell you what it's all about. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.